Let's recap how we've gotten to this stage of our project. So the beginning was to first write our lettering. We played around with placement, sizing, spacing, and taking a normally written letter, made it a thicker font, in my case more of a block lettering, and again played around with where those letters are in relationship to each other. Some of mine are lower, some of them are higher. I let them touch and merge. Some letters are slightly diagonal, some are vertical. So we played around with the placement of our letters. Once we had finished that and we came up with a design we liked, we then took our letters and we fit them into a compact shape. So we tried out some different shapes, something that we felt would go with our letters and their spacing. And we added serifs, we added some background, we added some things to our lettering to give our design more interest. After that, we took that design that we liked and we transferred it from tracing paper to a good sheet of paper. And in our last video, we talked about creating the 3D effect to our lettering. So we worked with a vanishing point and we connected and checked all the corners or outer curves of our lettering and anything that was a serif to go along with our lettering. And we connected that to the vanishing point to create this 3D effect with our letters. We may have narrowed down any background shapes we had because the letters overlapped them, or we let some of those background shapes overlap the letters. So our next part in the drawing stage is what we call a keyline. So a keyline is basically a border that's going to help separate your design from the background. I once again suggest that you use a piece of tracing paper so you can try some different things out with this keyline. Now, when thinking about the keyline, you could have it as thick or as thin as you want around the lettering. You do want it to kind of follow the forms and shapes and negative space and positive space of your design. So we want more than just the compact shape redrawn around our graffiti. You can also have some fun with this keyline. It doesn't have to be just a plain simple border. You can add a little bit of movement to it. But again, we want it to be an area that helps bring our graffiti forward and keep it separate from the background. So I don't want to do too much with it that it distracts from the main graffiti. So I'm going to start simple here. And again, I'm working on tracing paper, so then that way I can try a couple of different things before applying it to my good copy. So my first thought is if I went with a thinner keyline. So I'm going to keep pretty close to all of my parts. So my arrows, decorations, my letters, around my serifs and the three-dimensional parts. as I said, I could have gone thicker, but right now I'm going to try for a little bit of a thinner key line. So I could just stop there. I could leave my key line like this. The rest of it would come into play when I go into adding color to my graffiti design. But as I also mentioned, I could add things to or with it. So I have a lot of angular, triangular spaces here. So maybe I could try softening the design a little bit. Maybe I can add some circle shapes in or around it. Again, I don't want to distract from my main graffiti, but I'm going to consider adding things. Maybe this one will actually merge into the key line. And it's kind of like a bubble in my key line. I can have them different sizes and groupings. Since I have at least one merging over there, maybe I'll try another merging over here. So I'm not thinking three-dimensionally with these. I'm keeping them just flat and fairly simple. So what I'm doing is, as I add, I'm also looking to see if I'm happy with what I have, if I want to add some more. Again, I got to play with the balance. I don't want to completely fill up the key line or add too much more to the background that may distract from my graffiti. But I also want to add a little more interest, because remember, this is going to be in color. So these would be pops of colors, and I'm imagining that the background would be a little bit more neutral, because most graffiti is found on some sort of neutral background like brick or wood or metal. So usually it's not found on something that's already have some sort of interest or excitement to it. So this is my last chance to add a little bit more color and a little bit more of the elements of design into my final piece. So that's not too bad. I kind of like that. I think I'm going to stop there. I can always add more bubbles if I decide I need them. But again, I don't want to get carried away right now. So I'm going to try maybe another plan. So what if I did go a little bit thicker with my key line? Around my graffiti. What may that look like? How much wider around here am I going to go? I don't mind the thicker key line around it. I think it really helps bring the entire design together, maybe even a little bit more than the thinner key line. I think I might like a more noticeable key line around mine. So again, do I just leave it like this? Do I add more to it? I could do a double key line. I could add maybe a thinner line around this line. Thinking of the original application of graffiti, maybe I'll try to see what it'd look like if maybe there was some like paint movement or dripping from the key line. Maybe this was spray painted on. So maybe I can play around with some dripping motions on my key line. Don't really like that shape. Maybe there's some splotches of paint if it is dripping from spraying. Maybe some of those drips have skip spaces. I know sometimes when I've worked with any type of spray paint, if you're not careful, sometimes you get splotches of paint from it. I don't really like that. So I'm going to play around with at least the dripping effect here. See, again, how much can I add before it just doesn't look right? And may become too distracting from my piece itself. So right now I'm working with a lot of things down below here. And again, I don't want to add too much, but I feel the top part is kind of neglected. And it wouldn't make sense to add things like this above there because the paint would drip downwards with gravity. And I think these two are too similar. So maybe this one, I'll create another drip attached to it. So if I do something like that, again, I think I would want something above here, but right now I'm not sure what that would be. So maybe this design I will skip for now and try a third idea. So I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll be back when I have something. So I'm back. What I've decided on is kind of a combination of the two I was playing around with. So I have a thinner key line around my lettering. I did add the drips like I was practicing and trying out with the thicker key line, and I added some of the circles that I was working with the thinner key line. So I think with the thinner key line, the drips worked better. The thicker one, I think it was just bringing too much downwards in my composition. and by using the thinner key line with the drips, it doesn't overpower my lettering and all the work I've done before the key line. So remember, the key line is just a border around our design that you can add a few elements that come out from that border, but again, we want to be careful not to add too much to distract from the main composition, which is our name and any elements we added in or around our name to help form it into that compact shape. So in our next video, we will discuss outlining this, and then we'll eventually talk about adding color.